I was very eager to come to Cluj because I met Cluj as a whole delegation that came in early September to Cambridge to meet some people at Harvard and other people at MIT. And since it was such an early date in September, the date that the mayor and staff from the cultural center and from technology, media, etc., wanted to meet me was Labor Day. Labor Day is a national holiday. Everything was closed. So we got to spend more time together. We had lunch at my house and stayed through a rainstorm. And I was very impressed by the dynamic of a delegation from a city. Not everyone was speaking about the issues in the same tones or language or priorities, but everyone was speaking about the same issues in constructive and dedicated and creative ways. So coming to Cluj was a great opportunity for me to think about pretext at a city level, not at a school level, not at a particular sector of the city level, but at the level of a city. And I'm happy that the arrangements took very seriously to the letter my recommendations that we not invite many participants from many different organizations, but that we concentrate on 2 schools with possible administrative and artistic support from outside those schools. So we're here in a very wonderful and privileged private school, and we had 5 representatives from a public school. And one of the charms when you have heterogeneous groups is that people recognize talents and potentials and experiences from sectors that they did not think would be so relevant for their own work. So I'm happy with the anticipation, with the organization, and with the results. I don't know if happy is a strong enough word. Ideas are easy to share. Everyone has the same idea that teaching should be less authoritarian, that it should be more student-centered, that it should be transversal. We all know these same ideas. What have they accomplished? Nothing. The charm of pretext is that it lands those lovely, airy ideas into a simple protocol. So we combine a lot of advances in pedagogical philosophy, probably starting from Maria Montessori through Paulo Freire, and before that John Dewey, and before all of them Friedrich Schiller, into an artistic protocol that's developed by Augusto Boal. Our manual is dedicated to Boal. Boal was a theater artist, and he turned pedagogy of the oppressed by Freire into theater of the oppressed. And with 4 simple steps, you come into a village or a school or an organization that you know nothing about, and you're very effective, because the first move is not to tell people what their problem is, but to ask them what's their problem. They get to stage a tragedy about that problem, and everyone else from the village or the school or the organization acts as a actor, not a spectator, because you're watching in order to see what intervention you will make on the stage to derail the tragedy. So it's not talking about the idea, it's living it and seeing if you can make a change. You sit down and someone else comes up with another idea and another idea, because the dynamic of art is to say that there's more than one right answer for a question, and more than 2. And so art is an exploration beyond what exists. Without art, there's no development. Any good entrepreneur, any good political leader knows that they're artists, because they're trying out new things, seeing what works, leaving what doesn't, trying another. I will say what the protocol of pretext is. It's not a secret. It's just that it doesn't work if you don't train in it. And training means that you have 15 hours which is just barely enough for everyone to try a moment of facilitation and see what good happens, what mistakes happen, how you can become a better facilitator. So it's not showing, it's inviting to do. And that's the whole spirit in the classroom too, and in the organization. And the protocol is very easy. We read out loud because students don't like to read. We don't fight with them. We read out loud. One of the students volunteers to read on a table, on a chair, standing, because that's a tradition from the cigar factories in the Spanish Caribbean. People would be making cigars, and they would have a professional reader read to them. That's why brands of cigars are still called Romeo and Juliet, Monte Cristo, Hemingway. Read out loud while people are making things, and then everyone in the group, everyone in the class asks a question of the text. The text is the subject of scrutiny. It's not the student. When a teacher asks a question of a student, they're not always interesting questions. And the student becomes the victim of scrutiny. And so we kill curiosity there. But when a student asks a question of the text and listens to 20 or 30 more questions, wow, that's interesting. I didn't understand anything, but I want to read that again. We ask questions, we adopt each other's questions, we speculate, we write. And then at the end of that first activity, we sit around in a circle, you've seen the circle here, and we ask, what did we do? And that's a moment to reflect on the activity, on the creative, critical activity that we just did. What did we do? Everyone participates. And in order to know that everyone participates, we ask people to make sure that their neighbor has spoken. If the neighbor hasn't spoken, you give a little nudge, you give a smile, you encourage people to speak. When you make a simple rule like that, you solve many social problems. The protagonists have to quiet down. The shy people have to step up. People learn to listen to each other. So pretext is a way of doing high-level reading, being creative because you make up the questions, you make up the answers, and then you make up other arts activities to explore the text. And it's also training in socio-emotional and civic skills with the same activity. Because after that, the facilitator will say, okay, we made the first move, now what do you want to do with this text? One student may say, I think we should make a mural. And another would say, well, after that, I think we should dance it, or sing it, or decorate cookies, or make a fashion show. And everyone leads that activity with the text, and even when we hate the text, we like the activity, so we learn the text. It's that easy. The protocol is read out loud, ask a question, answer it, what did we do? And then the next activity, what did we do? The next activity, what did we do? That's it. There's no one who can't do that. You don't have to know the material to be a facilitator, as long as someone in the room knows the material. What should we do? We have a coordinator now, who's Christina from the Cluj Cultural Center, and she adopted the role of coordinator. So she will start by coordinating this first group in weekly or bi-weekly meetings, because everyone who's been trained has to come together regularly to say what they did. Otherwise, this goes cold. Otherwise, we go back to our conventional sitting in rows, which is a way of teaching authoritarianism. We sit in circles. So in order to keep the momentum and to start to implement in a natural way, we have regular meetings. That's the first coordination task that Christina has. And the next one will be to plan the next training session, because by then people will have had some experience in implementing, and they can just initiate the next group. This is a cascade. Anyone can train other people with a little practice.